What video game will always be nostalgic for you? PM me Pons please said. Donkey Kong Country. The mineshaft levels, man, probably spent an entire summer getting past those. James Bond GoldenEye on N64. Spyro, Year of the Dragon. I didn't even have a memory card when I played that. I would just leave the game an overnight and try to beat it in 2 or 3 days. Great Janitor said. Our faves were proximity mines in the library. Our friend Brandon, think Eric Cartman, only so fat he fell through the floor of his mobile home, hated proxy mines because they required no skill and he grinded that game, beat that game in all settings. He could expert kill you with remote mines and timer mines. Didn't think it was fair that we, lesser skilled players, could use proxy mines to kill. Refused any game that was set to proxy mine. One game we were beating him. We got smart and decided that instead of Battle Royale, we needed to team up against him. He unplugged our controllers. This led to another form of the game, Tosk Hunt. Tosk Hunt, from the Deep Space Nine episode Captive Pursuit. One player is Tosk, others chase after Tosk. Winner is who kills Tosk the most time. Tosk wins if he has the most kills. When Brandon was Tosk we set to proxy mines because fuck you Tosk. Brandon was the only Tosk to win. Rhoda said. Oh man, I remember visiting my friend's house as a wee lad and he showed me this game. When I saw the whole map's size, I was blown away. It looked so massive and diverse. To this day, I am still mad that they didn't do another overworld like that game has. They kind of do it as sometimes, but it never has this many secrets and paths to take like SMW had. The secret pipe that showed you Bowser's Valley in the second area of the game, literally just for you to have a sneak peek? That is genius. Cedar Wolf said. I feel the same way about the original Zelda game except that bit where you're better off skipping Labyrinth 5 to get the ladder, then leaving to go finish Labyrinth 6 first. Labyrinth 5 has the Vire enemies that split apart into 2 red keys when you hit them, which is very annoying, but they die to a single blow from the magical sword, which you can only get with 8 hearts, and you can't get 8 hearts without the ladder in the raft. Labyrinth 5 is not difficult at all, but it's way less annoying with the magical sword. As for A Link to the Past, the only dungeon that made me actually quit the game is that accursed dungeon in the forest where it's so easy to get lost inside. There were several points in ALTTP where I got the thing or finished the last objective and then had no idea where to go, so that was a little frustrating. It remains one of the only Zelda games that I own but I've never beaten, right up there with Zelda II. I also hated how Link could swing his sword in front of him and there was a slim window of a couple of pixels that his sword wouldn't reach, so it wouldn't block incoming missiles or enemies, etc. That felt so limited compared to other Zelda games. However, I feel like Link's Awakening was a perfect Zelda game. It's only the plot and story around the windfish and the island of Koholint that doesn't make any real sense. And of course, Ocarina of Time was phenomenal. That South Kannada guy said. I remember having to send a money order in the mail and waiting 2 weeks for a 3-month membership. That game helped me escape life in 2009 when my best friend died. 2012 ended up being the year I got banned for botting. Lost a lot of hard-earned shit because I was too occupied with needing to play while working and adjusting to a social life. Now I'm back at it again with OSRS. It's not the same but at the same time it is. Got my fiancé to even play it. Just collect stuff and skills. It's adorable to see the flame in her eyes for the game I once held dear. I wish I had that spark still. Iker said. Red Alert 2. So over the top and silly with less base micromanagement than StarCraft, though I did play the crap out of that too. Half-Life 2. The first real modern FPS I played. Coming from UT98, the graphics made my jaw drop. Something about the atmosphere and movement and combat really clicked too. I played a lot of HL2DM back in the day. My 2 top picks, though with special mention to Neverhood, the silly soundtrack never gets old, Diablo 2, click 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 click. Oh, you want a build that sends a wave of 50 bone teeth every time you attack? No problem. And Dune 2000, which was really just another CNC but with sandworms. Very much a PC biased list because my parents refused to buy me a console, but PC gaming was all fair. Plantain said. River City Ransom. I remember the night that I first rented it, not long after its release in 1990. It was a Thursday night and I was in the 2nd grade. It was the first time my mother had ever made tacos, so after filling up on crunchy Ortega shells and old El Paso beef seasoning, which felt like something from the scorched depths of Tijuana itself to my Puritan palate, I plopped down in front of the TV, sat on the creaky wooden floor and had at it. I had selected the game because my parents had recently purchased a copy of West Side Story from one of those get 10 movies for 1 cent deals that were prevalent at the time, and I'd fallen in love with the film's aesthetic and setting. The box art for River City Ransom reminded me a lot of the Rumble Under the Highway sequence, so I grabbed it up as my weekend's entertainment. To this day it remains one of my all-time favorite games and I'll never forget that night. Aside from the tacos in the game, there really wasn't anything special about it, but I think it's special that I remember that feeling, especially among the countless others that I've entirely forgotten. Prequel Pudu said. After 40 years of gaming, I'm 44, too goddamn many to count. From adventure on Atari to getting platinum medals in all from software games. From Quake, Mo, AVP 1 and 2, Unreal, COD 1 and to Battlefield V, Battlefront 2 and soon Battlefield 2042. From Ultima to EverQuest. WoW and then back to classic WoW. With EQ2 and Jedi slaughtering NSWG for good measure. So many good nostalgic games. Adventure, Combat, Missile Command, Super Mario Bros., Zelda, Ninja Gaiden, Rush and Attack, River City Ransom, Contra, Super Mario 2, Zelda 2, Metroid, Castlevania, Ghouls and Ghost, Final Fantasy, GoldenEye, Perfect Dark. Like I could keep going, but damn it would take forever. Atari, NES, Genesis, SNES, 3DO, N64, PS1, Xbox, PS2, GameCube, PS3, Wii, Xbox 360, Wii U, PS4, Switch, PS5 and gaming computer. 45 years old next year and I've been at it from the start. Hail of a run into many memories and nostalgic moments to choose from. Now back to Naya, and GTF oh my yard. Farts are hilarious said. Red Dead Redemption. I never played video games much. When I was younger my older brother played them a lot. We were close but never really had similar lifestyles. We just had different interests. But late in the evenings he'd be playing video games and I'd want to sit down, so I'd hang out with him and watch him play video games. I actually enjoyed just watching but never played much myself. He ended up dying in a car accident. It was rough. When going through his things we came across the gaming stuff, a computer and various PS consoles. Nobody in my family cared for them, but I wanted to keep his gaming stuff despite my mediocre interest in actual gaming. It was just a way we spent time together and I knew he loved his games. I didn't actually touch much of it for a long time, but one day it was raining out and I couldn't do much, so I thought I should fire up some video games. I looked through his games. I had heard of RDR but never played it and thought that I should check it out. OMG. I fell in love. I've never played a game that I thought was so much fun. I played it so much. I finally finished it and RDR 2 was already out, so I decided to go buy it. It was another rainy day, I just thought it was a good idea. I love RDR 2 and have played through it already. I'm doing it again now. As I said, I'm not even much of a gamer, but damn it, I wish I could talk with my brother about this game. I know he'd be so proud of me for my accomplishments in my own life and I really wish he was here. But damn it, I would love to play that game with him. TLDR, I discovered RDR and RDR 2 in my dead brother's stuff and wish I would have been able to play it with him. Our counter assistant said. Me and my friends used to all hang out playing HOMM turn for turn at the computer while drinking, smoking and listening to music. Such great memories of that game. Also, when lockdown first happened we all decided to give it a try again and figured out how to all play together online. Realizing it wasn't as much fun waiting for everyone to do their turns made it only end up being a couple of games before we stopped entirely. Jeepo Beepo said. Halo Combat Evolved. I was like 5 years old and absolutely obsessed with trucks and army men, and here's my uncle and grandfather playing some game with aliens and guns, but most importantly, the Warthog. It was the coolest looking thing ever and I begged them to let me play and they finally did. I think I spent 3-4 hours just driving around the second campaign mission. FFWD 20 years, and every time I boot up the game, The soundtrack and voice acting and everything just takes me right back to 2001 and sometimes I tear up a little. Sir Phil McRae said, GTA San Andreas. I first played it when I was 16, 29 now, and have got 5 copies of it lol. I have the original disc PC version, the Steam version, Android and both PS4 versions. One is the PC port and one is the original PS2 port. I don't know how many times I have played it, but every time I do, I always do it to the end and it feels great every time, most recently being the PS2 port. The soundtrack, the characters, the city, the variety, in my opinion has never been matched. What astounds me is how small the map is compared to GTA V, yet how much bigger it feels. Live Long Basher said, Capone and Pinball Dreams on the Amiga. My parents were in constant competition and it was awesome. King's Quest II because we got stuck killing the snake, then I figured it out early one morning and got to loudly announce it to the household. Ports of Call. My granddad had a full-blown diary of buy and sell prices for his cargo. Also, the CD version of Carmen Sandiego and Lexicris, which he loved and we enjoyed playing together. Interceptor, because I eventually managed to land on the carrier. Wings, Secret Weapons of the Luftwaffe and Wings of Fury, because those were the games my best friend and I would huddle around a PC and play together. Duke Nukem 3D, Descent and Warcraft 2, those were the game we first started playing networked with friends. Delta Force Land Warrior, COD 4, SWAT 4, Viet Cong, Battlefield, Rainbow Six and Ghost Recon, because when I moved interstate, those were the games that kept me connected to family and friends. Edit, and Sparkle Unleashed, which I didn't play, but was the first game to make my wife kick me off the PlayStation so she could, in her words, game for a bit. Kicked New Cats said, Animal Crossing. Not the new game, the older ones. Sure, New Horizons has a lot of customization and stuff, but I played the game for the villagers. The villagers had such bright personalities and good conversations that it brought a tear to my eye when one of them left. I didn't have a lot of friends when I was a child, so playing Animal Crossing brought a smile to my face. It felt like I had a place to belong in. Thanatus said, Shareware Doom. My dad used to play it, and I would stand next to him and watch. Also, later, Donkey Kong Country on my uncle's SNES. I feel like my uncle never thought he was that cool, or something. IDK if it was BC he lived with my grandmother, his mom, but he had this area in the basement decked out with candles, guitars, amps, and of course, that SNES. But to childhood me, that room was otherworldly and magical. There was also a computer at my grandmother's house with Commander Keen, too. Another classic. Formalad 1166 said, I wasn't allowed to play a lot of video games growing up, but my grandma had a Nintendo 64 at her house, so when I would go over I would play those games. One of which was TMNT, Turtles in Time. Game Grumps played it recently and the amount of joy and nostalgia I got while watching was incredible. ParadyBit01100011 said, Virtual Cop 2, my first ever video game. Call of Duty 2, one of the first WW2/FPS shooter games I played and the first ever Call of Duty. Made me grow an interest in World War II. Age of Empires, my first ever strategy game. Really enjoyed it because it was the first game that challenged my intellect in contrast to previous games. Command & Conquer, Red Alert 2, nostalgic for almost the same reasons as Age of Empires, plus the cool alternate reality sci-fi Cold War theme. Road Rash and Need for Speed 2, my first racing games. R6335 said, Mario vs. Donkey Kong for the Ds. I ended up getting this for my first console, which was a hand-me-down Ds, and I loved the game. I remember it being simple but addicting gameplay on these really creative bosses, and I used to play it non-stop in the car on weekends going down to see my grandma and grandpa. Now and again I'll go back to the game and give it a bit of a play. Stantichrist said, Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time. My little brother loved that game, and because I was watching him a lot while my parents worked, he would be playing it in the living room and be so proud of himself for getting through it. My little sister also loved playing it. I played A Link to the Past as a kid, so I was a Zelda fan too. They both loved Wind Waker as well. Zelda games are beloved in my family. LMAO. The Great Lemon Will said, I'm caught between two. Resistance, Fall of Man led to some of the funniest moments for my friends and I, playing as Chimera who can see through walls at the cost of dwindling health while equipped with the Auger, a gun that can shoot through walls. Fun times. Had a friend eventually manage to shoot himself in the back of the head from across the map after he'd already died once. But then there's Mass Effect. I will never, forget talking to Vigil on Isla's. I will never forget the relief that I'd never have to listen to Caden bitch about moral. I'll never forget how sad I was to learn I'd chosen a reformable racist over a dude with. I don't like Caden, okay? Public Servant Gulai once said. FF Tactics. I had pneumonia, pretty bad. I got discharged after a few days but still weak as a kitten. My wife bought me Final Fantasy Tactics, and said when I get better I can play, and went off to work lol. She would call during the day to check on me, and I'd get the "you better not be playing that game" laughingly, and she'd hear the FF music in the background. When she'd get home she'd cuddle with me and I'd play while doing breathing treatments etc. It was just such a good time, even though I couldn't breathe for shit lol. Rocket Trainer 2007 said. Tomba. Honestly not sure how we even ended up with it since it was such a limited run, but I loved that game. Hell, I still love it. My brothers would make fun of me because I would beat it and then play it again. I keep an old PS1 around just for this game. I might need to revisit that crazy pink-haired dude and those evil pigs again soon. This is Rogue 2 said. Donkey Kong Country. As a present for my birthday my grandparents gave me a SNES bundled with that game and a CD with the soundtrack. I'm not kidding, I can still taste the cookies and chocolate milk that my grandma gave me after I came back from school and I turned on that beautiful console for the first time, and that was 23 years ago. I still have the console and the CD, but I had to buy the game a few years ago since a cousin stole the original from me. Traditional Mud 1241 said. Honestly, as obscure as it is, the old Neuromancer game. A few kids in my neighborhood had it at the same time and spent a month unraveling the game step by step. There were no cheat guides or wikis, we just shared secrets as we found them. Same with Wasteland, Fallout Before Fallout, and a few others. Also, please get off my lawn. Chronic Couch Napper said. Chrono Trigger. I play it once a year and I get as excited about it now as I did when I was a kid playing it, barely, if not being able to read at all. I remember my older brother introducing it to me. My two boys are into FPS and make fun of me for my love of JRPGs. But now that my daughter is 11 and some of her friends are into anime, maybe, just maybe I can get her to see what I see, and we can share an interest. Not too hopeful, I haven't gotten any of the three to share my love of American football yet either. Conquistador said. I've come to enjoy video games more through the years and can't stop to be amazed by games like Trlau 2. Though shitty online games are a trend compared to games of yesteryear, the medium has advanced to deliver impactful, meaningful narratives. For me, Worms will always hold a special place. So fun to play with friends huddled around the same screen. That and Red Alert on crappy LAN networks getting kicked off for phone calls. Bonsai Institute 1972 said. Final Fantasy. The NES FF was my first RPG, unless you count Sword Quest and Raiders of the Lost Ark for 2600, and I was hooked. I tried every RPG and RPG like I could get my hands on for the NES. Then the SNES and Genesis came along and, mind blown. FF2 and 3 were masterpieces. Earthbound, Secret of Mana, Buck Rogers, Shining Force, Phantasy Star, Illusion of Gaia etc. Now I had two systems to play so many RPGs. And of course FF7 for the PSX is a true classic. I tried to play some of the remake recently and it is very good, but not feeling it yet. Working through FFXV now. Weird vibes with the four dudes in a car, but it is interesting so far. Between PlayStation and PC, there have been so many more fun and exciting RPGs, but nothing will ever hold up to the original FF from NES and 2 and 3 on SNES. Attican 101 said. LOTR, BFME 1 and 2 are very nostalgic for me, and Half-Life 2 always gives me a nostalgic twinge when replaying, though Mass Effect and Fallout 3 really showed me the possibility of games. My mother rented me Mass Effect, and I went in having no idea what to expect, then just fell in love from the title music onward. I have spent a lot of money trying to recapture that feeling, by avoiding the news on games if they seem interesting, then going in nearly blind, and sadly so far nothing has quite scratched that itch. Stellador of England said, I have listed this games as I have grown up with the consoles too. SNES Master System, Mega Drive, Mario Kart, Street Fighter, Sonic, Streets of Rage, Golden Axe, Alex the Kid, Amiga Sensible Soccer, Settlers, Championship Manager, Wing Commander, PS1 Gran Turismo, OG FIFA, FF7 and FF9, Crash Bandicoot, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, Rayman, Team Buddies, Tekken 3, PS2 GTA, licensed FIFA, Animisha, Dynasty Warriors, Need for Speed, Xbox 360 Fable, FIFA, GTA, Borderlands, Assassin's Creed, PC WoW, Guild Wars 1. Apostle 25 said, even though most consider it one of the worst, Final Fantasy VIII. It was the first game I felt attached to its world and characters. Something I remember bringing me joy on off days when I felt down as a kid. The first game where I felt I could escape my problems. Love the story, music, characters and especially the cinematics which were next level for that time. Even loved the Magic Junction system and still play it sometimes to this day. I know it's not going to happen but a remake like 7 would be amazing and I think it deserves it. Envison said, as a series, Legend of Zelda. So many games are tied to different parts of my life and hold so many memories, the biggest of which is Wind Waker. Not only my favorite Zelda, but my favorite game of all time. There are a ton of games that give me nostalgia though, so narrowing it down to one is difficult. Pretty much most big game systems from the NES onward do in some way. The only consoles whose games I really don't have any attachment to are the PS1 and the original Xbox. That and I wasn't a huge PC gamer, so I mostly remember the games my dad would get that I'd play, that is Doom, bunch of LucasArts Star Wars games, etc. Obi-Wan Jacoby 414 said, Fallout 3 and Arkham Asylum were two of the first games I played and invested in as a teenager, not at release but around 2015. Both games were jumping off points for me into their respective series and will always take me back to 10th 11th grade when I first played them. Fallout 3 is still my all-time favorite game of all time. I go back and forth between whether I like Asylum or City more. They are both so different in game and in what they mean to me that it's hard to choose. This person Astadius said, Crash Bandicoot Team Racing for the PS2. I used to visit my dad in Nashville when he still lived in Tennessee. I'd always play this with him and my brother. He gave me his old PS2 when he moved back to Arkansas and I've kept it since. The PS2 doesn't work anymore so I can't play the game but I'll never forget playing that with him. Genuinely one of my favorite childhood memories. M.R. Lumberg said, Super Mario World. I remember playing it through to beat it, then again to complete it 100%. I have fond memories of growing up in Arizona and watching the clouds roll in during the summer monsoon, and seeing the clouds in the bridge level of the game reflecting them. It really did something for me at the time. Later on, Fallout, New Vegas. It was the first game I ever bought the DLC simply so I could spend more time in it. When I first got the game, I was 1,000 miles away from friends and family to take a job and it let me get lost for hours on my days off. I'd spend a bunch of time just walking and exploring after a shit day at work. Znico2K said, Minecraft 1.7, 1.8 and the Hexxit mod packet was the first real PC game I ever played. I started with 11 years old on mobile with the Pocket Edition. After half a year we got a PC and I gave my dad 20 euros that I saved up and said please could you buy Minecraft for me, . The first world I played was in the 1.7.4 and it took me about 2 hours to build a house on the water with 3x8x4 on the water. After that I started to play more and more and became kind of a PvP god, I was hella good. I also did a couple of YouTube videos which was fun but I stopped after about 20 videos. After about 2 years of only playing Minecraft intensely, often the whole day after school, I finally bought Go and have been playing it ever since. In Minecraft I probably got 5-7k hours, in Go I am currently at 2,900 hours, Faceit 5, and my inventory is 1,000 euros.